Hi, my name is Hilda Mendoza-Avila, and we're going to learn about functions today. A function is a list of instructions grouped together to be executed only when the function gets called. So let's take a look at different types of functions. So the one that we're looking at right now is a function that has no parameters and no return value. When I say no parameters, it means that, as you can see right here in the parentheses, there's nothing inside it. Okay, and as you can see the blue word def, that is a keyword. So you have to type it out so the computer knows that you're defining a function. And in this case, say hello is the name of the function. And just a good rule of thumb is to always name your function to be descriptive of the task you are accomplishing in that function, right? So in this example, it says say hello. So we know that this function is supposed to say hello. And the way it does it, it basically just has a print statement and it just prints a message on the terminal. Now, it doesn't have a return value. It means that functions are able to return values. And we're going to take a look at some examples in a little bit. But as you can see right here, this is how you call a function. So this is how you define it, how you define the behavior of the function when it is called. So in this case, whenever say hello is called, then we're gonna print that message. And this is how we call it. We write the name of the function, and then in parentheses, we put the information that is needed for the function to receive, but in this case we don't need anything. That's why we have an empty pair of parentheses here. And because you are able to return values from a function, you can set that call equal to something. So you can save the return value of that function into a variable, and in this case could have been return value say hello, but since it doesn't have a return value, nothing's really going to be saved in that variable, but it's not going to break your code. And also, since you already know that it's not returning anything, that means that you can just call it and not have the return value of that function be saved into a variable. Okay, so let's take a look at another type of function. And this function does have a parameter. That means that a parameter is a variable that holds what the person calling this function needs to provide for the function to work. In this case, for this function greet person, for it to work, you have to send it a name when you're calling it, so that when it is called, it's going to be printing hi and then the name that was provided. So in this case, it's going to meet or greet Manuela, right? Because that will be the name that we're sending it as a parameter to be saved in variable name and used inside the function. As you can see, this function doesn't have a parameter, just like the first one, okay? But the third one does have a return value. And right here we have a parameter. As we said, it's where we save information from the caller, and then we created a variable just for our reference. And right here, we basically go through the human name, the name that was provided by the caller, and then we alienize it. And then we return that alien name or alien variation of the name provided here, so that when you call it, you can send in a name and then you can get a name. And that's how, and the reason we are saving it into variable new alien name. So new alien name is going to be holding the alienized way of Antonia. And now on the fourth one, as you can see, we do not have any parameters and we do have a return value. That means that we don't need any information from the caller, but we do send information to the caller. And for that, in this case, what we are doing in this function is we are adding the zoo animal. So we're taking these variables and we're just adding them to see how many animals are in the zoo. And whenever we call add zoo animals, we basically save that total number into our variable total zoo animals. But as I mentioned, since it does have a return value, you can either save it or not. It just depends if you're gonna use it later. So if you're gonna use it later, it will be useful for you to save it in a variable. But if you don't, it's not gonna crash your code. It's just going to not be saved. Okay, let's move on. So we are going to look through 3 examples. The first one is taking a breath. So first you will inhale and then exhale. And then we are able to say that a breath has been taken, right? And this is a code of how it looks like. We do have this, let's say, primary function, because that's the one that we get to call. And we define the behavior right here. And whenever take one breath is called, we are going to call inhale first and then exhale. And as you can see, you have to define it before you call it. So that's why the definition is up top before the call. And that's the same right here. So we defined it here, inhale, we defined that function, so we could be able to use it or call it here, okay? And this is how it looks like, the message, the output terminal. Okay, so now in order for us to take a step, we will need to first start in our starting position, and then we will put one foot in front of the other, and then the second foot in front of the first, and then we're able to say that a step has been taken. And if we take a look at the code, we will have the primary function right here, which is the one that we call, and in our case is take one step, and then whenever this function gets called, we get to call put foot forward, and as you can see, it's defined here, and we're able to send the information of which foot we are going to put forward. And in this case, whenever we take one step, we are going to put the left foot first forward, and then the right one. And whenever you send that information to this function, it is just going to print that information with the kind of foot that you sent to put foot forward. And this is how it looks like in your output screen. Now let's take a look at this example. So in order to read a sentence, first you will like to open your eyes, then you will go word by word, and you will either say it out loud or you will say it in your mind, right? So we would go one child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world, and now if we take a look at the code, we will see that this is a primary function, and we're able to see that we are able to send information to it. We can send the text that we saw in the previous screen, and what it basically does, it has some local variables, as you can see from here, and what they're doing is they're dealing with strings, so it's going to deal with the indexes of different characters. So we have the current index being 0, so that will start from the beginning of the text that we're sent through sentence. And then what we do is we do have to get the index of the last character in that text. And the way that we do that is by calling the function get end of sentence index, and we send the text that we were given initially, and then what we're gonna get is an integer that would represent the index of the last character in our variable end of sentence index. Okay, and if we take a look at this function, get end of sentence index, it takes text. It also finds the 3 characters that can end your sentence. So you don't read all of the text that you're given, but only up until either a period, an exclamation point, or a question mark. And as you can see, I am using the function there's already defined within the string library, which is called find. What you can do is you have the string that you are interested in looking a character in, and then you do that and then find, and then in parentheses you will put the character that you're looking for. So in the first case, I'm looking for a period. The second one, I'm looking for an exclamation point, and the third one, I'm looking for a question mark. But um, if a character is not found in sentence, what it's going to do is it's going to return a -1. So there is a possibility that all of them, or none of these three variables are holding a -1. And we will see why it's important for us that a little later. And then in this variable, what we are doing is we are saving the index of the last character in the text that we were sent through our variable sentence. And right here, what we get is the last character, the last index of the last character of our text. Now, what we have to do is find out what is the index of the last character, meaning that what is the index of the first period or exclamation point or question mark in our sentence starting from 0, right? And what we do is we have a series of if statements, and what it does, it basically compares which index is smallest, meaning that will be closer to the beginning of the sentence. And if it's closer to the beginning of the sentence, it means that it ends the first sentence first, right? And that is what we're looking for. We're looking for the first sentence in the text that we were given, right? But the reason that we have this variable is so that in case we don't find a period or an exclamation point or a question mark, we can send the index of the last character, because at the end of the day, if there is nothing in between to cut the text shorter, we will just read the whole thing, the whole text. Okay, so that is the reason why we saved that into this variable to start with. And then what we do, it says in sentence and index, the value there is the biggest index in our text. So if we have the variable period index with a smaller value, meaning that it's closer to the beginning, that means it cuts the text shorter. That means that we have found a character that ends our sentence, but we have to make sure that we are not interpreting that as a -1, because there is a chance that maybe we don't have a period there. And since -1 is going to be greater than 0 and any other value greater than 0, we have to look for that too. Okay, so that's why we have period index less than sentence end index, and also it has to it has to fulfill the condition of the period index, the value there, it has to be greater than -1. It could be 0 and on, but it cannot be -1, because then it would not have been found. And then what we do is, if there is a period cutting our text shorter, then what we do is we update sentence and index to be whatever period index is holding, as you can see in the comments to the right. And right here we do have the same the same condition again, but in the case that there was a period, then sentence and index is going to be holding the index of the first first period found in the string starting from 0. And then what we do is, if there is an exclamation point before a period, we update the index in sentence and index. However, if it wasn't found, we just move on to the next condition and so forth. It's the same condition, but now with a question mark, in case a question mark comes before a period and an exclamation point. And then at the end, after going through these series of if statements, then the variable sentence and index is going to be updated to have the index of the character that ends the sentence, or it probably still holding the index of the last character in the text that we were given, meaning that there was no period, no exclamation point, and no question mark. So at the end of the day, it's going to return a value. We have to make sure that we have that ready and covered for all those cases. So that is what is going to be saved into our variable end of sentence index. And then what we do is we just have a simple while loop. And what it does, it's going to execute these two lines as long as the variable current letter index, it starts being 0, and it has to be less than or equal to the value in end of sentence index. And what it does is it prints the character at that index, meaning the current letter index. And as you can see earlier in our series of videos, you saw that if you wanted to print characters or little strings in the same line with different print statements, you will need to specify that the end, you will need to set it equal to a space or nothing, just so that it's on the same line. And what we do is we have to update the value current and current letter index to just go up by 1. So we move up and eventually get to the character that is at the index said or held by end of sentence index. And as you can see right here, this is the call of read sentence. And what we did is we sent all of this text, but as you can see, we have a different kind of text at the end in our output screen, and that is because a period was signaling the end of that sentence. And as you can see, the name of Malala does not show up just because the period came up before the end of our text. Okay, thank you so much for your time. I cannot wait to see the wonderful functions you are going to come up. Good luck.